Call the September 20th, 2022 meeting, East China Board of Trustees to order, please. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, roll call. Treasurer Hart.
Here.
Trustee Babel.
Here.
Trustee Blackstock.
Here.
Trustee Richley.
Here.
Clerk Batey here. Supervisor Westrick.
Yes, here. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
Show my chair.
approve the agenda, and we do have some changes, Mr. Richley. Whereas the first one is our plan. John is here to speak on that, so we'll have that under presentations. And the second thing, the assessor came to me and said that they wanted this 2022 tax rate request. We have to sign that and get that in by the end of September, and then once the budget's done, if we got to make changes, it's going to go in for the same one. So that's going to go on under new business. We'll make that new business 13 and make new business 14 the closed session for the periodic evaluation of township manager, okay?
Okay.
And I think that's all I have. Anybody else on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Richley.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approve the minutes, last meeting. Any comments or questions?
There are none. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support.
Mr. Blackstock and Mr. Richley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? John, power plan? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you again. John Johnson with Burnham and Flower Insurance Group. Cindy and I had worked on this year's power plan insurance renewal. She'd asked me just to come out and do a brief refresher on some of the coverages and some of the programs within your policy, and answer any questions that might have come up in the last year. So everyone should have a proposal here. Page numbers are always on the upper right-hand corner, so I'll kind of reference those as we go through. And as you can see on the cover page, we have a November 1 renewal date. So we're just getting ready for your next policy term for the Michigan Township Participating Plan Program. For those of you that aren't aware, you've been a member of the PAR plan for a number of years now. So far, you've been able to take advantage of some of the benefits of being a member. A few of those are highlighted on page 2 within the proposal. First of which, you'll see an updated figure for dividend returns to date. So last year, the PAR plan was able to issue an annual dividend. So your updated dividend figures to date are just under $3,000 in return premium dollars to the township. Another updated figure you'll see in that second bullet point, which is grant awards to date. So to date, you've received just over $15,000 in grant awards, which is that risk reduction grant that I know we've talked about over the years. I believe your last approved application was related to some resurfacing at one of the parks or playgrounds. So I'm not sure if that work has been done yet or not, but glad to see you were able to be approved for this last grant cycle. So I believe that was the last fall cycle, and so if that was the correct timing, then you're eligible every 12 months. So depending on if it was the spring or the fall, you may be eligible again this fall, again depending on timing, if I have my dates right. And if so, that fall cycle will open up again October 1st. So that will open up October 1, remain open through November. And again, assuming that it's been 12 months since you've last been approved, you would be eligible for some new funds. If you haven't hit that 12-month cutoff yet, then you'd be eligible again in the spring, which is April through May. They have made some updates and amendments to the grant program. They've opened it up to certain things like trainings and CEs, where historically they had not approved many of those types of things. They have also opened it up to things like generator purchases. I'm not sure if that was something that you had looked into for your different facilities in the past, but things like generators are now open to the grant. And all of that information, like always, is on the website, which is theparplan.com under their benefits tab. Lastly, I'm not sure if, as a member, anyone at the township has taken advantage of what the PAR plan calls their scholarship program. There are a few different certifications that members can receive reimbursed expenses for. The main one is the Michigan Citizens Planner certification. There are a few supplemental certifications as well that you can get those expenses reimbursed for. It's my understanding for the Michigan Citizens Planner certification, one individual per year can get that certification. The other more supplemental certifications, I believe you can have 2 or 3 individuals. And all of that information is on the website as well. I believe most of those certifications and classes are through MSU over in Lansing. But if you have any interest or any questions on that scholarship program, please feel free to go on the website. And if you have questions that I can assist with, please contact me at any time. As far as the nuts and bolts of the policy and the coverages, no significant changes to the policy document this year. We did make some slight increases on things like valuations for your properties and vehicles and so on to attempt to keep up with inflation. Easier said than done these days, but so you'll see that some of those valuations are updated a little bit. As far as liability goes, though, that portion of the document begins on page 7. And again, no changes here, but we always start with comprehensive general liability. So you'll see this covers the township premises and operations. So this would be a bodily injury claim and or property damage claim, essentially on township premises or quote unquote caused by the township. You'll see we have a per occurrence limit, like in previous years, with no aggregate, which means you are not capped on any set number of general liability claims in a policy term. We do have a deductible, which you'll see listed in Section A, so that would be essentially the township's maximum out-of-pocket there for those GL, general liability type claims. There are a few supplements which I think we had touched on in the past, one of which is the sewer backup liability. So we do have a sublimit which you'll see a per occurrence and an annual aggregate limit for sewer backup liability. We do have the ability to increase that sublimit. I know in the past we had talked about that and what the next available limit would look like and what that expense would look like. I don't believe my underwriter had run that scenario this year, but if that is something that you have interest in potentially increasing, I can get you that figure. But currently we do have a sewer backup liability limit with a per occurrence and an annual aggregate listed there. Many of those, potential sewer backup liability claims are going to fall under your governmental immunity. And so this would essentially be if for some reason the governmental immunity does not apply in a certain scenario, and then this would be defense and payment on behalf of the township in those unique type cases. It seems like, especially these days, more often than not, though, many of those sewer backup claims do fall under that Michigan governmental immunity clause. On page 8, you'll see the list of extensions of the general liability. Again, no changes here. Everything from athletic participation at the parks and playgrounds, cemetery coverage if you have a cemetery in the township, elected and appointed officials' residence. So especially during the initial COVID kind of lockdowns, we had more and more of our township officials doing their work from home. In those scenarios, this policy would potentially extend to your residents, all the way down to special event coverage. So your traditional township functions, whether it's a festival, fair, those types of events are generally automatically covered under the policy. There are some unique cases that may require additional insurance, 2 of which would be if there's fireworks being done at an event and or liquor liability, which would be the sale and distribution of alcohol those two unique type situations would require some supplemental insurance for the event. Section B, employee benefits liability. So we do have a per occurrence and an annual aggregate here. This is actually a sublimit of the GL as well. This would be for those unique type claims where an employee has a quote-unquote benefit not delivered by a program, which could be a retirement program, a health insurance program, and or a workers' compensation policy. Next, we do have the public officials liability. Sometimes this is referred to as the wrongful acts coverage. And again, no changes here from the historical limits that we had listed for the township. You'll see we have that per occurrence limit with no aggregate. We do have that same deductible as the general liability. And then, like always, there are a few sublimits to this section, one of which is the non-monetary defense coverage, or sometimes referred to as injunctive relief. And secondly is the private property use restriction or zoning coverage. So you'll see those two sublimits do have per claim or per occurrence limits. The injunctive relief or non-monetary does have an annual aggregate. Zoning does not. Then lastly, for liability on page 10, we have the auto liability. So this, like always, is going to be primary for any of the township scheduled vehicles. It's going to be coordinated for any employee's personal vehicle if they're using their vehicle for township-related driving. On page 11, we have our updated vehicle schedule. I believe my customer service rep had worked with Cindy, making sure that that is accurate and up to date, but if you do see any amendments that need to be made to that schedule, please let us know and we can make sure we get you the proper certificates. And then moving on to page 12 and 13, we have our property schedule. So a pretty lengthy list you'll see here of all of the different structures as well as contents for a number of those structures. And then on page 13, about halfway down the page, you'll see our total building and contents blanket limit. So you do have a blanket valuation for property, which does give us some benefit. I had mentioned we had increased some of the valuations on these facilities to attempt to keep up with inflation, but we do have some additional, more or less wiggle room if there was an incident where a specific valuation might not be adequate because, let's say, lumber costs are way up or something along those lines. And then on page 14, we have our extensions of the property coverage this time. Again, no changes here. These are all going to be in addition to your building and contents limits. So they could be supplemental expenses that may come about depending on the type of property claim you have. And then in addition to contents, we have what the program calls electronic data processing coverage, which is more or less your unscheduled tech items. So your computers, printers, phones, fax machines, and so on. Anything that's not specifically scheduled in the inland marine section, which begins on page 15 and carries on through page 17. So you'll see that's a pretty extensive schedule of specifically listed items. We do have some miscellaneous property and equipment as well to cover those unscheduled items that might not fall either under contents or EDP. And I know we're constantly working on maintaining and updating this schedule as well. And then lastly, on page 18, we have our last section, crime and bonding. This relates to township funds. You'll see the different quote-unquote crime definitions, things like theft, mysterious disappearance, potential destruction of funds. There's some fraud coverage, employee dishonesty, and so on and so forth. And then at the bottom of page 18, we do have all of our bonded positions. As always, these bonds are assigned to the position, not the individual. So if you do have any turnover or change in any of those positions or who the appointed person is, we don't have to amend or update the bond. As always, whoever the appointed individual carries the listed bonds.
I get 5.
So finally, on page 20 of the proposal, you'll see our 2022 and 23 policy package as presented. Like in previous years, we have offered some potential amendments or additions to coverage. You'll see one of which is the property and liability terrorism coverage. Secondly would be a cyber and privacy liability policy, which I think we had discussed a bit in the last couple of years as well, which would cover a wide range of these new exposures that many businesses and now municipalities are having to deal with related to cybercrime, these phishing schemes, malware situations, and so on. I did run, just for figure's sake, some increases on things like liability, potentially increasing those 2 sublimits within the public officials liability, and I had mentioned we do have the ability to increase things like that sewer backup liability as well. Doesn't look like they added that in the options section here, but if that's something you have interested in, I can get you that information. So went through that a little bit quicker, I think, than previous years, but I just wanted to open the floor to any questions that may have come up in the last year. Again, I know there weren't any significant changes to the policy, so I just wanted to do the highlights and then open the floor to questions. So.
Good.
Any questions from anybody? Comments?
Do you know offhand if our rate increased from last year?
It was a slight increase. It was about a 3 or 4% rate increase this year. What we've seen kind of in the industry is that that's actually below average, even with depending on the program. We've seen anywhere between 8 and 14% more on average. I think the reason that we saw only a 3 or 4% for your township is we have seen some continued improvement on that loss history. I know historically we had some litigation situations that we had dealt with, but in the recent years we've seen a vast improvement in claims not impacting your pricing as much. And so I think that one thing that we had looked at when I worked with the underwriters this year was, we're probably not going to be able to do a straight up flat renewal this year, but not as significant as we would see, elsewhere, because we have seen some improvement on those claims ratios.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, John.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Appreciate the time.
I do have some extra copies too. I know Cindy wasn't here tonight.
Right.
Yeah, Susie's
That'd
out
be
with
good.
COVID. She doesn't have it, but her son does, and so she's quarantining or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment. Anybody?
Sarah Blackstock, I'm here to represent the Recreation Advisory Board. So real quick, we were told to bring something back to you guys. So at our last meeting, we talked about doing a trunk or treat on October 22nd, open to the township. Shouldn't be any cost. We just have the park open, advertise, so all the kids, the local kids, can come in and do it there.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. Cindy, you good? No public comment? Consent agenda. Financial reports, Sinclair Area Fire Authority Run Report for July 2022, the Historical Commission meeting minutes, August 2022, and Park Commission meeting minutes, August of 2022. Comments or questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Ritchley.
Support.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Disbursements. Want to read them, Nicole?
They did the same thing again.
I'll let you do it this time.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess,
Oh, checks are $35,862.19.
Payroll.
Payroll is $87,837.76.
I think that's it.
EFTs of $12,701.34. The e-check, $302.30. Tax, $9,188,386.66. And our invoices are $212,247.05. Grand total is $9,537,337.30.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $9,537,337.30.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. I just had one question. I assume that's the county's portion of the tax that we collect and everything at
Yeah,
the schools
tax
that we gotta get back to
disbursements,
it.
yep,
That's a lot of
tax,
money.
yeah.
Did we put it in a bank account for 3 days and get some interest on it?
Well, that's probably just, we have to disperse every 2 weeks, so everybody pays at the last minute, so the
Yeah.
last one's
Okay, any other questions,
the big
comments?
one.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart?
Yes,
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick?
Yes. Old business, 1, utility billing dispute policy. The sewer credit process has been extensively overhauled again and simplified to one sheet, which is
Fantastic.
looking a whole lot better to me.
yeah.
Yes,
Um,
not so confusing.
Everybody get a chance to take a look at that?
Great.
Yes.
Did you do that, Sandy?
Pardon me?
Did you do this?
No, I revised the first
I
time,
know.
submitted my
Yeah,
thoughts.
we just talked about the asset meeting, just went back to this.
Yeah.
This is great.
Anybody have any questions or comments or problems with it? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve this.
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. All right, on to new business, UHY invoice for the audit. And the OPEB valuation, I think they do MERS too in there somewhere, but. So, any questions or comments on that? I'm new here, so Sandy, is that typically what it costs, or Nicole, is that typically what it costs us for
Yeah,
our audits?
They detail out
Seems like a lot of money.
more than they used to,
yeah,
but there's a lot involved.
mm-hmm,
And it's not just at that time, they're involved in between too,
Mhm.
you know, with the office staff.
Well, my question was yeah, I mean, it's a total of $18,785, but you have an additional assistance required, $8,460, and I know Cindy's not here tonight, but
The accounts.
I believe that was for, that project that you had, with the
Huge-
GL
The
numbers.
state required us to revise all of our
right,
jail numbers. That
Right,
was
right,
a
right.
very big project.
so they went through that with us, okay, that makes
Right,
sense then.
941, they do that. Balance it out for the year, special assessment, accrued payroll, vacation assistance, prepaid expenses. I
Okay,
remember there were some things there. Right. We really don't have them under contract for professional financial services, basically just the audit, so they're
Right.
going to charge us the extra charges based on time and who's helping us, you know, their rates.
well, the total bill was $32,785, we've already paid them $14,000.
Yeah,
Yikes.
So my question is,
it is more than
Yeah, that's
previously.
more than it's been in the past, for sure.
I think I'd like to bring this up down the road here about maybe gathering some quotes on some of that stuff.
Bidding it out?
Our attorney and some other people too, maybe, but, I mean, it's something that should
We
be
used
reviewed
to
every
do
few
that every
years.
3 years or so.
Every few years, so,
Yeah.
but, you were happy with our services though, Nicole? And you've got one more than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the municipalities do use them, and, you know, you just get a different representative. But, I mean, they're usually good about things. I'm not sure what all this additional.
It's listed
I was,
there.
yeah, I was looking, I was like,
It's 45 hours.
I wonder why there was so much more this year.
Evidently, they get close to $200 an hour.
Yes.
Okay, well, duly noted.
right?
Yeah, we've incurred this cost and we're done, so do I hear a
Right.
motion to approve this?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the invoice in the amount of $18,785.
It's been moved. Any support for that?
I'll support.
Herb, okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart,
Yes.
Trustee Babel,
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock,
Yes.
Trustee Richley,
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes, Supervisor Westrick?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, new business 2, Miller Canfield invoice. This is per their quote for work on our clean water sewer revolving fund coming out of the bond. $23,500, and it's, the bond is done on that part of it. So I guess they're done with their work. I make a motion to approve that one. That's pretty straightforward. We approved that same amount.
Support.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a general question,
Mhm.
not pertaining to this in particular, but just out of curiosity, why are we reviewing a bill that was already pre-approved through a proposal?
I had the same question.
Why isn't it just added into the bills that we generally approve?
It's already been approved, so it should just get paid, in my opinion, but
Well, I'm just curious as to why, because it
Yeah.
comes up.
I was kind of
Even-
wondering that too.
Even the one we just approved, other than the extra, I believe we approved that quote. Why?
for which one?
The one we just approved.
Auditing?
Yeah,
Oh, the UHY one?
yeah. Why, if we approved the quote ahead of time, why is it?
I don't know if we approved that quote because they do have extras on there.
Well, I remember, I thought we did. I don't.
Okay, yeah, that was,
This has come up before, and I'm just curious as to why certain
Right.
items are put on there as a roll call vote.
I think
Approved.
out of a
Pre-approved.
abundance of caution, that's why she wants to put it on there, but, down farther, there's the change order for Hunter Electric. She wanted to put the invoice on there too for the 6880, which we already approved a meeting ago, remember? So I told her, no, just pay that one. So the only thing we're approving tonight on that is a change order, so I'll bring that up, but yeah, I agree. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart,
Yes.
Trustee Babel,
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock,
Yes.
Trustee Richley,
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes, Supervisor Westrick?
Yes. Okay, the next one is for our Marsden Road Pump Station Emergency Services. The first one is Mercino dewatering. Got to bypass pump that until we can get the pumps changed out from the Urban Drive station. So we have one in each of them now, and they're supposedly working on their pumps. So this is a $10,855.10 for them to come up, hook it up, bypass, maintain it, and then just dismantle it when they were done. Not much of a choice on that one.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get, I know we're getting the pumps repairs through our insurance company, and then we're gonna try to include this as well, because it's something that was part of that whole deal.
That's what I had
So-
on here about having,
So, yeah,
Insurance.
we already started the claim on the pumps, for sure. First thing I did when I heard about it the next day, call them.
Is there any kind of like surge
I
protector?
have that
I
on
mean,
here, too.
it sounds
That
silly
was
on
my-
this.
no.
I will
My
report
next
back to you on
question.
that, but I am fighting with Kennedy right now about that, because they said yes, but this is something more with lightning strike, wherever else, and I'm like,
No, it was during the power outage because I saw them there, and then I saw them on Meisner, and I thought, oh, something's
I
going
know,
on.
I had the phone call. I actually went over there even.
well,
but-
lightning hit our tree that night too, so.
Yeah.
So-
We're right down Meisner from there.
The next asset meeting that we have, that one month, you know, that we have about whatever, I don't know what I call it, the asset meeting, that's what they call it. But anyway, the rep's coming from there, and
Okay,
he already knows how happy I am about it. So,
okay.
because this pump station, we put in their control panels and everything else, because the other ones were from different companies, and they're like, well, you know, if we get a surge or something like that, it might not protect, well, here we go. This is all their stuff,
Exactly.
Right.
2 months out of warranty, and we have this problem.
Oh,
So,
boy.
so
Yeah.
I guess, worst case scenario, we're gonna be up for $1,000 deductible on the insurance, but I just think what's right's right. I don't
Yeah.
think the insurance covered it if it's something that should have been done right, so
Right.
we're working on it, but,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, to answer that question about everything, it's the first thing I said. So, but we have to pay Mercino for his services. They do a great
Right.
job for us. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to have them, so. Any other questions or comments? I think it's been moved and supported, right?
No. I'll make a motion.
I made a motion to move that, No, I didn't. All right, go ahead, you go ahead, Cindy.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoice for
the other one.
$10,855.10 to Mercino Dewatering.
Thank you, I'll support it. Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart,
Yes.
Trustee Babel.
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock.
Yes.
Trustee Richley.
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick.
Yes. Okay, next one is for the pumps. You see the cost estimate ahead, in front of you there, $30,275 to fix those two pumps, and some in the panel, I believe, too. And, like I said, we're gonna have a conversation with them about this. They already know Brian's name, but Blaine set that up with me. And Anthony will be there from PC as well, because he sent me the warranty over the very next day about it too, but again, I guess worst case, we're gonna be paying $1,000 deductible on this, because Cindy did process the, insurance claim.
I would say
Yeah,
a
right.
lot better than 30,000.
Yeah, and again, it should include the Mercino too,
Yeah.
under our policy, hopefully it has that for temporary. But anyway, I guess we'll have to make a motion to approve the $30,275 for Kennedy.
Support.
Any other questions? Other than storms, the only one of the year.
Roll
Clerk, please
call
call the
vote.
roll.
Treasurer Hart,
Yes.
Trustee Babel.
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock.
Yes.
Trustee Richley.
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick.
Yes. Next item, the trail bridge repair, bid. This is for our Wilson grant that we got half the money for. Working with Anthony and PC, we did approve to pay them to design this, pull this bid up for us, but it's all, I think it looks fine now, the way we have it. We added some more in the park that was actually bad. Blaine said we should just do more of it anyway, but when the bids go out, and we're gonna put this out in February, we're not gonna do it this year now. We just don't, it's mid-Feb, it's
Right.
what, third week of September, but by the time it's out, I'm not gonna have them out there trying to do asphalt in November. You know what kind of job we'll get, so.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have him finish this, because we did pay him to do this, and I wanted it the way I wanted it. And if anybody got any comments or questions about it, but we have ample in there. Later tonight, you'll see some quotes from Blaine. He wants to get the lumber, but he's still gonna work on the bridges this year and get that done. So we're ready to hit the ground. Bid it out in February, weather permitting, they'll get it done in the spring so we can have it good for the summer. I don't wanna let it go all year. But we're gonna wait and bid it out in February. But the bid specs and everything that he's done now looks fine to me, and we'll get it out in February. If anybody's got any questions or comments on it. No? I make a motion, we approve the bid documents as presented then.
Support.
Let me just do all in favor on that, right? Because we're not really talking money, so.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next one is the road project for next year from the Sinclair County Road Commission, where we do a match. They do a project every year. They haven't done our project yet this year, and I keep asking them when, but we don't
What
get
is
it.
what is their project?
This year is, it's Hawthorne, Clark, Chamberlain, and I think Reamer Road down there. That's what they proposed last year, I guess, and had on the plans. They're gonna mill it, part of it, and then cap the rest of it. But, they said, well, the contractor will do it when he fits it in, but here we are coming up on October, so. Anyway, that's supposed to happen this year. For next year, they want it by the September 30th, a resolution for it. We talked about it at the asset meeting. Mr. Knotts had said something about paving Delaware, possibly, or something like that. But that wouldn't fall under this particular program. This is a rehabilitation type thing, not a new one. To do something like Delaware, they would have to do curbs, gutters, storm sewers, and design the whole thing. And if we wanted to try and do that, they would look to maybe doing under this project for the following year. So they're gonna look into that when they get time this winter to see about, doing that for 2024. But for this year, they proposed this project. No one had any objections. I don't know of any other spot that
Who proposed it?
the road commission. They said this, unless there was other streets available. I know that road's in bad shape, but, nobody lives on it, but
Right.
yes, a lot of residents do use it, getting to and from work.
How do
It's
you got-
It's a
yeah.
very
Yeah.
highly traveled road. They just did,
Right,
Just did their portion this year, and it looks great. I mean, it's one of those roads that, it's not from anybody's house, but it definitely gets used a lot, so.
What are they
It's a local
proposing to
road.
do?
What's that?
What are they proposing to do?
They're gonna mill and resurface that whole road, probably crush that in place and pave it. They said it's a rough estimate, but they will only go up to 100,000 on a match on a program, so that's why. I said, fine, we'll see where the budget plays out this year, but when they come up with numbers in the spring, we can always just decide, hey, do something different. Don't go all the way or whatever if we don't have the other half or the portion that we have to do. But for now, we'll plan on this project. We don't have anything better because we don't want to lose $100,000 of money from the road commission, so. We'll turn it in this way and see if anything comes up differently.
resolution. So there's a resolution.
So, any questions or comments about the project?
Nope.
I'll read the resolution then. Resolution 22-2022, Local Road System Funding Assistance Program. Following resolution, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the Sinclair County Road Commission has established a local road system funding assistance program through policy number 75 as revised October 6, 2009. Whereas the local road system funding assistance program provides matching funds to the townships for the improvement of local roads in St. Clair County, and whereas East China Township has identified a need for improvements to Putty Gut Road using the local road system funding assistance program, that's a lot of words, for the year 2023 for the above named roads, and therefore be it resolved that East China Township makes application to the St. Clair County Road Commission for funding under the local road system funding assistance program for the year 2023 for the above named roads. There you go.
Okay, are you offering this?
I make a motion to approve it.
I'll support.
Okay, clerk, call the roll, I guess.
Roll call vote. Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel? Yes. Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick?
Yes. Mike will stop by and pick it up once you get it signed, Sandy said. Okay. Okay, water sewer fees, tap, benefit, sprinkler. We already approved our rate changes, that would be effective October 1st of this year. What we didn't finalize was the tap fees and benefit fees. The tap fees, we kind of went over with Blaine in the meetings, in the committee, and he raised them, came up with the numbers of, we were covering about a third of what it actually cost us to make a tap for someone, so. You kind of remember you were on that committee.
Yep.
But anyway, so that was that. The benefit fees, I collected a bunch of benefit fees from St. Clair, Marysville, Marine City, people around here to see what they were kind of charging for benefit fees, which, if you don't really know what that is, it's the privilege of tying into our system and buying into the system type thing, kind of legacy cost, whatever they want to call it. But anyway, we went right in the middle of all those for the benefit fee. St. Clair is quite a bit higher on most of those. But I kind of took the average and used that for both of them. We did change a few of the fees. Blaine, water turn on, off fees, that went up a little bit. It was like $10. Well, to go turn someone's water on, it takes a minimum of an hour to get in his truck drive over there and turn on or off and come back, so I said, well, let's get close to what it's costing us per hour. And, outside regular work hours is the weekend, it's a 3-hour minimum for that DPW employees, so we kind of went with that. Plus, we want to discourage that. We really don't want to be doing it on the weekend.
Right.
If we can, do it during the week. Hydrants went up a little bit, and another reason was why later tonight you'll see a quote for a hydrant meter with a vacuum breaker on it for, what, $4,000, whatever. It's a lot of money. So we want to get a little bit more money for the rental on that and deposit. Someone breaks it, whatever. Meters, we just put actual costs because they change constantly now. We're just gonna charge the day you come in with the meter, Blaine will have a current cost, it'll be that plus 10%. That's what the meter will cost. That way there we aren't losing money or whatever, or if the meters go
Right.
back down a little bit, it'll be whatever, it'd be just a little bit more fair for everybody. And then sewer, on the back, sewer benefit fees only with an inspection fee for the tap. Blaine, they do not do any sewer taps anymore. We just simply don't have the manpower and capacity to do it safely. Some of them sewer mains are pretty deep. So we use an outside contractor, and that cost gets passed on to the applicant or homeowner, whoever. But they basically will pay that. But there's still a benefit fee attached to it, plus Blaine's inspection fee for making sure they do it right. Same thing on the water too, if you look on the other side again, I'm jumping back, but they only tap up to 1.5 inches. Anything after that, we have an outside contractor do the same thing on that with equipment, and there's just an inspection fee only on that, plus the benefit fee. So I know I covered a lot of that right there, but does that make sense to everybody?
I'll make a motion, we adopt Exhibit A in the water and sewer tap benefit and sprinkler fees.
I support.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Clerk, please call the roll, or we don't
Yeah.
really do money on this, but
Yeah.
we do the roll anyway.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick?
Yes,
So that will be effective
October 1st.
October 1st, okay.
So if anybody needs something, come over here.
That's right.
Next item, I put this on the agenda to discuss some of the comments that Parks had made at the last meeting. Wanted to kind of go over the budget with the board a little bit more. I'll take it real quick here. I noticed in the minutes when I looked at the packet Friday too, that the August 10th Park Commission meeting minutes said that they felt that we weren't rolling their money over year to year, but that did start in 2019. If you look at the first section, it's done by years, okay, you guys? 2019, there's an original budget, and then their actual activity is going to match on this pretty close, but you've got your revenues and expenditures down through, and after the end of the first year, 2019, they had $69,202 left, which stayed in their fund balance. That was their new fund balance that would carry over to 2020, okay? That one's pretty straightforward. 2020 came along, the same thing. If you notice, they started putting in their budget in revenues, grant revenue, that they want to try and go out and get. And they projected that they would try to get $70,000 worth of grant money in 2020, but they actually didn't collect any. So that, and I think some confusion could come that if you put that in there,
Right.
but you don't go back here and put grant expenditure 70,000. You're putting the money back here thinking you're splitting it all up in between this stuff. Well, you really don't have that available unless you got the grant. So that was one big thing. You got a $70,000, no grant there. We should kind of help them make sure they just put it in, boom, out here, And it kind of is, you got capital outlay improvements on the second page, 105,000, where they only spent 14, so
Right.
it kind of was there, but to make it clear, let's maybe see if that'll help them, but,
Or don't even put it in until they get it.
well, you gotta offset it in appropriation
Yeah,
somewhere, so put
yeah.
it, grant revenue here is in your revenues, go back to this side, and expenditures or appropriations, grant, spend, whatever you wanna call it, I
Right.
don't really care. but-
Can we kind of stop here right now for a second? I'm wondering why there is no treasurer on their board.
I don't know.
That's my big question, because
Yeah.
obviously they would have gotten together and checked all this out and been able to follow through through the years.
Yeah.
Well, we've made some changes.
Okay,
I'd like to go through this.
okay,
Once we get through these years, then
Okay.
let's open up a little bit of a dialogue.
All right.
I want
Thank
everybody
you.
to have a chance, okay?
Okay,
But let's
thanks.
get through these first and make sure this makes sense to everybody.
okay.
And then, but I kind of agree with you there, but that'll come down. But we'll keep that note and let's bring
Okay.
that up. 2020, they had almost $100,000 left over that they didn't spend. So you take the 98,533 that it is, plus the 69,202, gives them 167,735. Now they have a savings balance of that. going into 21. Now, here's where it kind of falls apart. Again, we got another 70,000 in grant revenue, but they only brought in 800. Okay, so that's a $70,000 hole up the top again. That is not on the second page for grant expenditure again. You'll see our transfers in, you notice them, I should have went over that, but you transfer in of $196,000 in 2019 from our general fund, $233,210 in 2020 from us, $190,000 in 21. For whatever reason, they submitted a budget with a $74,450 deficit for 21. And it didn't get questioned or whatever, but, I mean, they do have a fund balance, that's fine. But if you see there, the original budget for 2021, that projects that you're gonna eat into the 167 and leave you with only 93,000 again then. So that probably should have been addressed right then. Why are you spending that much more? In there is Bell River Park, the 120,000 that they wanted to start putting aside for the seawall project. I assume that's Bell River Park. So that was in there, and that's where it was at. So they finished a little better at the end of the year, though. If you see on the activity, they only had a deficit of 58,000 instead of the 74. But that still comes from the fund balance. So the 167,737 now becomes 109,595 because they operated close to 60,000 in deficit in 21. In 22, again, we've got grant revenue, 54,300. The 18,000 is the parks, one we get from the county parks, I believe, and I think we just got that. So that's coming, the 18 something, I remember seeing that. So they did get a $5,000 one from, one was North Star, which is the one down below, I think. The other one was Power Plant, actually, we're here tonight. So anyway, so we're another $50,000 hole there again. We're projecting revenues in grants that we're not getting, or they're not getting, I should say. We upped our transfer in from the general fund. It was $240,775 this year. So that brings our total revenues of estimated to $323,275. There was a comment made at the last meeting that our bookkeeper, I don't like using names, and I wish we wouldn't have last time either, but employee numbers or just, bookkeeper's fine, that we're moving money around. Well, we didn't. The only amendment that was made to the budget, which is why it says amended budget right there, we had an email by the parks manager on February 16th saying, please take the $40,000 capital outlay improvements at the bottom here, it's shaded a little bit, break that up. 26,515 for that, and then take 13,485 and put it up to Manor Park. Okay, I believe it was from mulch. So that's the only change that was made to that revenue. All right. If you see that their budget in 2022 is over, like activity in the right column there, 38,569 so far. Well, it's actually over the 26, but when they submitted the bill, they didn't use the Manor Park ledger number. They used this one down here. So when the bookkeeper paid the bill, did it as they requested, used 970, that put them over. So realistically, that still doesn't matter. It's just shuffling numbers in there. But 13,485 up here, they didn't use hardly anything. So that's still, it should have been asked to be billed to that. So anyway, if you take the appropriations from the front, which includes the grant revenue, they would have had another $94,000 left over, or a surplus this year. Add the $109,595 that carried forward from 2021 after the $58,000 deficit, they had $204,000 ending balance. But right now it's trending. They have as of September 30th, their 2022 activities says they have just over $64,000 left to spend to balance within the budget for the year. Okay, but not including anything for Bell River Park, obviously.
That's to run the park.
Yeah, the
last
64,000 is, you're operating for the park.
Right,
They still have the 109,595 as their fund balance, it's still there,
okay.
okay? But if they can run the park till the end of the year for 64,000, they'll have the 109. If they can finish it for 60, they'll have a little more than 109. If they can't, it's just, that's how it works. It's like your checkbook at home. As of December balance, it carries to January 1st, and that's kind of what we did. It started in 2019, so I just want to clarify all of that and how it worked, and hopefully that made sense to everybody, because the other budgets that you look at can be confusing, so this, year by year, shows how it went, okay? So does anybody have any questions on any of that, how it worked?
Did you guys get these same reports? You did.
Late, yeah. Not in the format that you have, that I saw in your packet.
Okay.
I don't get that.
Yeah, they got them in the format that we get every month,
The
like-
other revenue expenditure?
Right,
Okay.
right. And those could be a little bit more confusing, but this, Corinne put together so we could try to talk about it a little more intelligently.
Right.
So, Ellen, you had a
Yeah.
question?
So just for the grant revenue under the amended budget, the $54,300, is that?
You're on 22?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that included in the 64,000 or no?
say that again now.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but
The last column is what they've spent so far. So if you take total appropriations right now, so far this year, 191,349.
But so under the net revenues appropriations fund 208
Mhm.
under activity, how it's at 64,000, is that's what's expected to be at the end or no? Am I understanding that right
That's
or
the
not?
$54,000 in make-believe grant.
$64,000 to finish
Yeah.
the park, but they have to bring in the $50,000 in grants yet.
Gotcha.
I
That's,
know that's where you're kind of going?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
okay.
And to piggyback on that, just a question. So we get grants at this board level. We just got a grant. Was that grant included in our budget? Do
No.
we have that in the same paperwork?
You talking about
when
the
township
bike
in
path
general,
ones?
Using this accounting format, do we start off our general fund with $100,000 in grant?
No.
Okay,
Not that I can see anywhere, unless we know we've got one coming. Like, we may next year because we have the $100,000 check from the Wilson, okay?
so we'll add that in next year.
I would assume, because we're not spending it this year, so it's gonna be in revenues for next year, or it'd probably be in the capital improvement fund is where it'll be.
So nobody made the recommendation of, hey, maybe you shouldn't include that.
I don't know what happened,
Okay.
but all I know is that
We
we,
actually asked for
Just
those
wondering.
grants to be removed because we didn't have them. The $70,000 grant we didn't get. And
We didn't apply for it, and we told Cindy that.
just one sec, did we answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I was just wondering about,
yeah.
yeah.
Unless, if they don't bring the 15 in, we got 14,000 left to finish, otherwise you're gonna be in deficit,
Okay.
roughly, rough numbers. Okay, good, cool.
So the $64,000 is not $64,000.
Well, $64,000 in their planned budget to finish,
Which
but
includes,
they haven't brought in all the
Grant.
revenues on the revenue side.
So you gotta take the grant money off then, in reality, correct?
so
So right now, they're
That didn't come
basically at,
Well, if you look on the first page, the
10,000.
projected revenues were 323, 275, 255 have been brought in.
from our general fund.
No, 240 was brought in from our general fund. 240, 775 from our general fund, plus all the Department 100 revenues, which are grant revenue, Parks and Recreation contribution, park facility use fees, dues and fees, all that stuff.
And I understand that, but that is money that is not 100% guaranteed, is my point.
Then it shouldn't be included in revenue then.
right,
Because you're including it on the revenue side up here, and then you're turning around and including it in expenditures appropriated over everything. It's really not available unless you get the grant. And some of these grants come in earmarked for certain things, like the Wilson grant, I can't use it for
I understand that,
roads.
but again.
I gotta use it for the bike
I'm
path.
asking the question is why
Why it
was
was
this
ever
not
put in there.
recommended to be removed from the budget?
For their budget.
Because
I would
Before my
recommend
time,
it be
Herb, and I
removed.
get
this
it, but
apparently is the only department that counts on grants, and somebody didn't recommend, hey, maybe it's a good idea that you just don't include that.
Well, that's one thing, or again, put it on the other side as a line item, grant expenditure. That way there you don't spend it unless you get the grant. You know, don't just spread it out over the other items. That's my recommendation too.
We
But,
had asked for it to be removed because we didn't have any grants. We were told to put in any grants we thought we were going to get. And I said, I don't know what we're going to get. They said include it anyways.
well, maybe they're trying to help you, but don't let anybody run your budget. You know what you're gonna bring in and you ask for, and you know what you're gonna go spend it on. That's kinda how I would do it. Herb's right. I mean, at a township level, I don't think we put anything on the revenue side for grants if we don't know we're getting it. You know, it's a wishful thinking thing.
That's
You
why I
know,
said
and
don't
Parks-
put it in unless you
Parks
already
gets more
have
than we
it,
do,
or you
but-
know you're gonna get
Your
it.
budget, though, is an estimate.
Right, it's an
It's
estimate.
not concrete, it's a
Right.
living document. It changes, it.
So,
I guess it was never
We
amended
never
then,
know till,
you know,
But a $50,000
since they did put it in there, it wasn't
Yeah, that-
amended.
is much.
well, it is. It's
Along
updating,
the way.
it's updating
Nobody
every
has-
month.
has the
But if they
say.
know they're not gonna get it,
Well, if they
Yeah.
say, well, we thought we were gonna get $50,000 from somebody, but they didn't
yeah,
get
that's
it,
unfortunate.
you might wanna
Now we
amend
see
your
where we're
budget, and then
at.
you'd have to go back on
Exactly.
this side
Because of
and
that.
remove $50,000 from appropriations.
right, right.
But if you put in the appropriation side, grant expenditure, just so you don't include it in the other things, it would make
Right.
it a little more clear. If you
Yeah.
wanna try to put it in your budget, but that's, cause I know some of the other
Yeah.
ones are in there, you know, for you're saving money for the
Right.
splash pad or whatever those things were, you know?
Yeah.
Or the fitness thing or something like that, so, but,
Changed after I left.
anyway, does anybody have any questions about the numbers and how they work? I mean, how, the math works. You
Right.
know, and it comes through to that. So-
Right.
So we're at that.
Okay, so that being said, where are we we said at the last meeting that we were going to make a motion to either give the money so the project can keep going. Did the contractor agree to separated payments? He
Well,
did.
that was, someone brought that up, but it would never have said anything about a motion. That's why I put it on the agenda to talk about it. I want, because without being on the agenda, we couldn't do it. So now it's on the agenda, so if you guys want to do something, that's strictly up to you, but
I was told to bring back a proposal, and I have it.
you have a proposal?
Yeah, I was told to go through our budget
Okay.
and ask how much money we needed by, if we could divide it up between 2 years. So it's basically just the bottom section here. But we'd have to go back through, I guess, with that 50,000.
Did you guys have any questions about that budget thing we went over though? Okay, just wanted to make sure. And then we'll move on to
We've been
this now.
working, we've already did a budget amendment, we just have to get it finalized.
So the 64,000 isn't really what they have though,
Right.
because there's still the grant money in there.
Right.
I use, if you see the dark green line on the back,
Yeah,
that is the most current numbers that I got from our
it's the same number we have.
bookkeeper, same number I got from our bookkeeper and the township manager, of what our actual cash money balance is. And I asked specifically for our savings account and our North Star. And this was the number I was given.
Again, this is the expenditure side, and it's taking into consideration that you bring everything in on your revenue side. But
I asked what our bank balance was.
your revenue side is short about 70,000. Well, you got 5,000 from the North Star grant, but that's fitness court, you gotta save it for that, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So you have brought in on the revenue side, other than the townships transfer in from operating funds, you brought in $9,656. And it was budgeted that you're gonna bring in $82,500. That's park fees, contributions, and grant revenues.
So
So,
again,
so about,
not talking about the revenues coming in. I'm talking about our final bank balance, what we have in the bank.
You have $109,595 in your bank from last year.
According to this snippet that they gave me from the actual bank, we have 172,496.
Well, I question that myself because because I was copied on that email, it looks like Cindy had, taken that from our system, our BSNA system, not
Not from the
the
bank
bank.
statement.
Right. So that would include this grant money in there because,
Well, how can it include the grant money when it's the bank balance?
but this is, that's why I
Not really
question
the
it. It's
bank
not the
It
bank
wasn't really the bank
balance.
balance, you brought it from the business system.
It's from BSNA.
You do have the 18 something that we got from the county parks. So it's really not that much, it's 72, 50, it's 50,000 still, roughly. So if you don't bring in any grants anymore this year, you really have 14,000 before you start dipping into your fund balance to finish the year.
Totally separate from the kayak launch project?
Yes.
Yes.
What is there?
That's, yeah, no expenditures for kayak in there, right,
Zero expenditures for kayak out of this year's budget?
Yep.
right,
$0.
right. So if there's no grant, and I would recommend you do not put that in your budget again, unless you put it as a line item on the other page.
I already said multiple times that we asked it to be removed on multiple occasions.
That would, I mean,
Okay, so how are we handling the kayak launch project then? That's my.
yeah, where are you at with that now? Where are we at? Are you at?
We applied for a grant through the Community Foundation. We're still waiting on the county rec money to see how much that is. We moved, so far, 83 grand from our fund balance up into there. So then the ask for you guys, if we don't get the grant, would be 125,000, with 25 coming from the rec department money, 50 from the COVID money. For a
Wait,
total of 75 for this year, and then for the following 2023, 50,000, but that would go up or decrease depending on if we got the grant. Not go up, it would be that or decrease if we get the grant.
I was kind of, my question was, where are you at with your contractor in the project?
you're, yeah, I mean,
He's waiting for me to come back to him after this meeting.
But he's not doing the work right now, right?
He's not, no.
No.
He's got it on the schedule, waiting for the answer.
Right.
so his
We paid him-
contract,
We paid him all the supplies.
You paid him for the material and that
Correct.
stuff, what he's done so far?
Correct.
so 224,632 is the contract price, and then how much, you've already, that's out of these numbers?
What's that?
The money that you gave him, how much did you give him already?
66, I think it is?
66,000?
Yes.
And that's out of this year.
Well, it's coming out of the 109, the fund balance.
Their fund balance,
Right.
66,618.
Okay, out of the
From the fund balance.
But I
okay.
wouldn't look at that part of it.
66,108?
66,618.
I'm sorry, what?
66,618.
618, okay, 66,618.
I have a straightforward question for you. How much is it gonna cost you to finish running the park this year? Do you have any idea?
Well, I have that we'd have 47,000 left over after we amended our budget to the end of the year.
You have 47,000 left over. No, how much will it cost you to finish running the park?
I just did it by line item, I didn't bring it to the number.
Well, roughly, you have a park manager you're paying, right?
Yeah, I have it,
Take a monthly of that, whatever expenses you got coming up. I'm trying to figure out roughly a number, because you don't really have 64,000 to finish the year. You have 14 unless you come up with grant revenue.
well, again, there was the, not the full information coming through to us. So, have to come back with the total.
Okay. I know it's kind of hard to
I
do.
budgeted it out all the way through December, as you see on the sheet. We did a budget amendment so that everything has a positive balance, and every GL has funds in them through the rest of the year. And that will be going, as soon as we get the minutes finalized, to the township bookkeeper to move the money from one fund to the other fund to make it all positive balance.
Yeah, and again, don't get caught up in the individual, because nobody's perfect with that, ours aren't either. But as long as the overall picture is
Well,
trending.
we have to get caught up in the individuals to make sure that we're allocating the money from each
Absolutely.
GL number correctly. So we made a formula on the spreadsheet so that all we have to do is plug in the numbers and know exactly where we are going forward. So we're doing every line by line of what we budgeted from this point forward to what we're spending to make sure that we stay on budget.
Yeah, I mean, I see there's quite a few items that are already over budget too, so,
Right.
yeah.
We moved money, like we had, on the original, we had like, $10,000 in office equipment or something like that. So I moved from that GL to one of the ones that was over.
Now, Deb, is a good time for that question you had.
What about a treasurer?
Yeah.
Why has there never been a treasurer on this commission?
Because there never has been. Our support came from there. I can attest to that when I was on that board 20 years ago.
True. Right, it was all one unit, right?
Correct.
Always.
Up until
Right.
4 years ago, right?
2019,
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
The money was handled from this side of the table to that side of the table. Then all of a sudden, somebody made the decision to cut them loose, them being parks,
Right.
and heap more responsibility on them without
I
the
know.
training, without making a recommendation of a treasurer, without saying, hey, you know, might not be a good idea to put the $50,000 in grants there that you might not get.
Right.
So
Exactly.
there was a different mindset since that park commission was created.
Right,
And now,
I agree.
there seems to be
a gap.
just, here you go. And there's no help or
Yeah, that's,
support that seems to be, me being the liaison, this is what I consistently have heard for the last few years, is that all of a sudden, there has been more responsibility heaped on that board. And again, I know, that's what it used to be, that's not what it is
No.
anymore,
I hate that excuse.
but that's the problem that we're having
Right.
here.
I mean, this
Right.
is just the first that
Right.
we're hearing it, I guess.
Well, I mean, you can go through the budget and, you know, there were some other things, in my opinion, that didn't help with this budget. One, we went from $30,000 in DPW salaries in 2019. Well, we had 17,000 in 2019. And then because COVID, nobody used the parks, nothing was done, they had $7,000.
We budgeted $32,000,
So-
and we were told, because we didn't use it the year before, we were not gonna get $32,000.
Well, I'm
It's
hearing
just
that
one
you don't get any
example.
guidance from anybody here, but then you keep telling me you're told to do this with grant revenue, you're told to budget this. Who told you that?
Cindy?
The
I'm sorry,
township manager?
Township manager and the bookkeeper and I, we go through the budget, but I never got the final until March. So if I'm asking for 30 and they decide that's not appropriate and they give us 7, we don't get that till 3 months later, till it's finalized.
No, I saw the email that came from the township manager back in November of '21 that said you got 200, the Parks is getting $240,775 from the township transfer. So that tells you right there, that's how much you're getting back in November.
Correct.
So I don't know what you mean by March.
Because when I did it, well, I can go back to the original. Out of that 240 was 125 specifically for that park.
Well, how you were gonna spend the money wasn't really,
Right, and you have to remember also, we're doing the budget in August for the following year. And I'm told to use whatever the balance is to project for the next year. So I was using that balance. So I shorted myself basically.
if we're not getting a
3
lot of
months.
guidance, you keep telling me that you've been told by people to do this, you know what I mean? Were they or not? I mean, I don't know, but,
Well, it's an issue that's gotta be resolved.
Yeah,
Either way,
Yes.
there needs to be a decision made on whether or
Well,
not this money is gonna come from us.
I'm the one that spotted it after you awarded, you know, because I helped you get the bid put together, you know, and get things moving on your end on that. But after I saw the minutes when you awarded it to Malcolm and how much it was, because I was thinking more about half that is what we were thinking it was gonna be. And I'm thinking, well, and I heard what the bids came in, but then you awarded it, I'm like, wow, and I was looking at those sheets thinking, that doesn't make sense to me. So that's when I brought it up and then started doing some research. Do they have money somewhere else that I don't know about? Because you didn't have the money to pay the bill, and I didn't want us to, you know, together as a group to get in trouble with the contractor by turning them loose when there's not money there to pay it. So, yeah, I looked at it, and I try to do that for everything, you know, at least that's what I'm trying to do. But, and I do the same thing with Blaine, and you know, hey, you know, you're running over in this department, why, you know? Because I'm trying to project for next year for the budget.
You came in late to the game.
So-
That aside, there's an issue here. I think we've decided that there needs to be some changes to however the budget's developed. That's one problem. The next problem is, what are we gonna do about it to fix this? Because
Right.
they're short. At
Correct.
this point, it's irrelevant whose fault it is, or who didn't do this, or who didn't do that.
Exactly.
How
Here
are we
we
gonna
are.
resolve this? Because a contract has been
We're here now.
awarded. They still have to maintain parks. So
Right.
how are we going to resolve it? Ultimately, their money comes from us. So
Right.
what is our next step here? Are we gonna discuss this further?
What I don't want to get into is back into micromanaging parks, because that's what the elected parks commission's supposed to do. They're supposed to run their parks and come up with projects and
Agreed.
stuff that they want to do. You know, if we're gonna watch over help them with their revenue side, but the expenditure side, we don't help them on, because, so how far do we get involved, or, you know?
Well, I
No,
think over
I
the course of the
understand.
next budget, we should stay involved on a monthly basis till we know they've got it they're understanding
Set
it.
up a meeting, or trying to set up a meeting.
yeah.
Two-way street.
With the treasurer, the bookkeeper, and the township manager, myself and Cindy. But we're trying to fit a day that all works for everybody. To make sure that we are on the right track, and I can show.
Well, right now, we
The
handle
treasurer,
all
my little
the
spreadsheet I
checks
made,
and
make
take the
sure.
money in and
Right.
all the stuff that we're doing, and I asked the question, how much are we charging parks the budget for that work, for our people here at this township hall? And it's somewhere between 2% and 3% for the people that work on this stuff. So it's not like we're charging them 20% of the cost of our bookkeeper or whatever. So
Yeah, it's like $7,000 for the
a
whole year.
It's like 2 to 3%.
Is it?
So it's not,
Okay.
you know, but I just wanted to make sure that people, you know, we are collecting for running all the paperwork and everything, so.
Well, that's fine. I'm just, my issue is, again, going back to the history of that board.
I wasn't here for the history, so
I
you're right, or
understand.
I don't know
But
how they
that-
did it before 19, I
that
can only see
board-
what I can see here.
I can tell you that 18 years ago, that commission was run with an iron fist by one person that was not on that board. The Parks Commission had practically zero input on what happened in that park. It was a rubber stamp to approve bills for things that we didn't really know at the time what was happening, which led to hiring a park manager to be more involved. So as this has evolved, now within the last year or two, like I said, there hasn't been a smooth transition to, here's more responsibility. Again, up until 2 or 3 years ago, that board had very little to do with developing its own budget. I can speak to that for myself. We didn't develop the budget. We were given a budget. Here you go.
Right.
Somebody else developed.
East China, the board here was given a budget from the park.
Right.
No,
No,
the board.
Oh, gave the budget
park
to-
what
Yeah.
the budget was. So now you've taken people that don't deal in politics, that are paid $25 a meeting,
Yeah,
and expecting them
to know all this.
to handle this budget.
So are you
And it's a
suggesting that
lot.
we do get more involved on that then?
I think until we get them up to speed.
In the training part,
I
yes.
think that I'll be honest, our accounting system, I think honestly, if a lot of private companies ran it like government does, they'd be bankrupt. Because it's ridiculously confusing for anybody.
They're,
So,
they might be their own entity, but they're still part of us. We're all one unit in the end.
the
We might have
issue
separate
with-
budgets, but
The issue is they don't have the budget to hire the support staff. I mean, really, you need a treasurer, like you had mentioned, that is on this much, much more than just coming to a monthly meeting. That's why our support staff always helped with the parks, just like they do with DPW.
and handled it.
Everyone else. Now there's been a transition where it's more
Done.
giving it to them.
Yep.
Which is
Well, we
fine.
asked for money, and then we said, well, no, you can't have that much. Or like you said in the past, it was, as long as it was reasonable, and it kept the community looking appropriate and bringing people in, it was never, how dare you ask for that much?
I just think,
Those
my
are my
opinion
words.
is, I think there just needs to be a training period where we kind of hold hands a little bit longer
Right.
and make
I
sure
agree.
that this issue does not happen.
Well, as long as I'm here, I don't have a
Right.
problem helping you with the numbers like we did tonight, okay? But what I don't want to get into is, I don't know how to say this, but I'm not a
Micromanaging
fan
it.
of the seawall project to begin with, okay? So if I'm gonna get into the expenditure side saying, okay, we should, I wouldn't spend $250,000 on a seawall in Bell River. Marine said he just put a kayak launch in a mile up the river. But that's my personal opinion. I'm trying to get to say that's kind of irrelevant. I don't want to even have to say that as a board member because it's their responsibility to come up with projects that they seem fit. They're an elected Parks Commission for that. So spend accordingly, and if you need extra money, come forth with that or whatever. And as a board, they decide that. But how far do you want us to get into that? I mean, just help with the math or what? You know?
I shouldn't,
Teach them to.
should the
train
parks
person.
manager
That's
be
all.
more involved in it
That's
too?
all I'm-
I mean,
The parks manager be more involved in it too? I mean,
And what?
the budget and doing that, I mean, she's gotten 2 raises in the past couple years. I mean, she's getting paid very good money, especially when we were closed for COVID. It was always like a seasonal thing. So, I mean, what exactly is she doing? She's not getting these grants either.
She actually is getting these grants.
Well, to be
We haven't
seen
gotten it in
yet.
3
I say
years.
to be seen yet.
But I understand what you're saying.
Apply for them doesn't mean we're
I
gonna
do.
get it.
Right.
They just need.
But I don't want to
support.
get too involved with making those things like
But I'm not saying-
judgment calls, you know, I don't want to get into that.
Involved.
Not my job.
I'm not saying pick their
Not
projects.
full-time.
Right.
I'm saying,
But we give her.
just don't give them, just don't throw a
And if
budget
we've
at them
given
that no
her
one has
enough,
experience with on that board.
Well,
And
the previous
then we have
supervisor,
problems like this.
they got 50,000 more this year than they
She
did
was
last
getting
year,
paid
so I don't know
full-time.
what that was
And
for.
she
but
was
you
getting
guys
paid
mentioned that at the
full-time
last meeting,
past
what
few
that
years.
was
Well,
for,
then last
right?
year she probably was.
Plus overtime.
Oh, I know.
This year's
We
over.
didn't talk about
Yeah.
that I
I
recall.
don't know if you've seen the latest.
They just need training. They need some
But
training,
they don't have, you gotta understand too.
so they
She only
understand
had 2 other
it.
guys working with her. She is going to be overtime almost a full person when she can't hire the staff. If no one's willing to work, someone has to do the work.
And that position was always meant to be a working supervisor. It was never meant to be sit around and manage.
Oh, right, right.
It was always meant to be, she was.
No,
the
I
only one
understand
when
that.
She was hired, she was the only one there. So that position was always meant to spend most of the time physically doing the work.
Right.
So,
She had 5 or 7 employees 2 years ago. This year she had 3, and 1 was part-time. So someone has to pick up that slack.
Right.
Okay, well,
But
do we have any other comments or
paying
questions
somebody
on the budget process, the
cheaper.
whole 9 yards? I get what you're saying there.
No, but are you
It should have
expecting
been
an
brought to your
answer
attention, don't
tonight?
use
for-
revenues for grants if you don't know you're gonna get
Are
it.
you expecting action tonight from the board regarding the kayak launch?
That's what, at the last meeting, you guys said you were voting on it at this meeting.
No, a board member said maybe we should just do,
No, here, let me read the minutes.
yeah, the
This
next,
is- This is how it was stated.
what do you want to do with kayak launch? You want to try and finish it this year? Is that's your ultimate goal?
Yes.
Okay.
It was suggested for the park commission to expend their available funds, and the board will consider using ARPA funds for the additional 100 to 124,000. The board requested that Malcolm Marine be open to accepting partial
more
payment from the
than that.
2023 budget. This will be on the next board agenda. We said we were going to address it
But I
tonight.
believe it's more than 125,000
Well-
now. Because they're,
Well, the difference they could make up in next year's budget.
That
Right,
was my
they're
next
already
question. Did you
in the hole
speak with
again.
Mr. Malcolm about payment arrangements?
Yes.
Okay.
But I have to see how much assistance we're going to get before I can come back to him with what's this year and what's next year. And we had put in for the grants to the community foundation, and they,
Well, we've already covered that. Let's not count anything from a grant till we get it.
I'm just.
I mean, realistically.
I don't want you to think that we're just here saying, give us money. We are trying to get some of the money ourselves. So we'll know on November 7th if we get the 50,000 that we requested from them. That's just a statement.
Well, then that can go on next year's payment to him, right?
Well, that's in for this year.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to vote on it this year, but they had something in their budget, so they tabled all the grants that came in at today's meeting.
Well, we said something about maybe paying him in January. That was brought up before for his final payment because is
Correct.
he still good with that, I guess?
Yeah, I have it on here for the request of 50,000 for 2023.
Okay.
So we pay them 3 times.
And we make up the
initial
difference?
payment we've just made.
So you'd need
is $71,000
$75,000 to,
So 158 about now, right, is the balance that we own. And you're gonna budget 50 for next year in your budget?
No,
is your
the
plan?
request from- yes, from you guys. The total ask is 125 currently, with no grants included.
that's for next
for
year's payment too.
2020.
No, 75 for 2022 and 50
Thank you.
for
That's what I'm
2023.
trying to get at.
That's on here.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at.
So right now, you're asking for 75 for this project
Correct.
for
To
2022?
split up that, yes, for 2022. The 25,000 that was not used for the recreation department, since we didn't have a rec program, to be reallocated.
Well, we can come up with where it comes from, but
What
you
is
need
that
75,000 this year and you want to have 50,000 in your budget next year to pay this bill.
To pay the balance?
So on the
No,
table,
It's not.
so their question tonight is,
It's 108,000 if you take the 50 off that they're gonna budget for next year, roughly, that we would have to come up with, if, to pay the whole thing. If you give them 66,618, it leaves
well,
them,
they have fund balance over here yet, Sandy. They have $110,000.
I
Well,
thought
we
you
have
said
to
they were
finish
down
out
to
the year.
40.
No, they have 110,000 in their fund balance.
Right, you said we only have 14.
You have
in our
14,000 to finish the year, so she's gonna have to figure that out.
Did that come out of that?
We don't have a number to finish this year.
66,618?
It will, when we thought the 64 was 64, which we were just told is now 14, when I asked for my account balances,
Right,
I had already moved money out of the fund balance to take care of some of the losses through here. So that's how I got us having 47,000 at the end. So I had to go back through and look, but for this year, we're asking for the 75.
It's,
So you're already
until they come up with a
down,
number, we can't do anything else. If it's gotta be further addressed next month or the following month, you're gonna have to do it then. You're gonna have to go back and figure out what you need to finish the year, though.
I know.
And you'll know in November whether you get a grant or not. But,
so he's fine with the money that you've paid him already to the end of the year?
No,
No,
that was
he
the
needs a
first payment.
75
He
too.
wants one
Right,
more payment
that's what I
this year and one more payment next year.
Right, the final.
That's what the 75.
75,000 more.
So today you're asking for 75
Correct.
for the kayak launch project
Correct.
specifically,
Yes.
Who wants to do the work this year, correct?
Yes.
from ARPA or whatever.
I think probably because.
Well, we'll
a lot of
discuss that as a
towns-
board where it comes, but they need 75,000.
Correct.
for this year,
asking
for tonight.
$75,000 this year towards the kayak launch, because you had asked that we split it up.
Right. That way they can cover the difference in next year's budget and pay the remaining balance.
And if we do get the grant in between,
Well, 25,000's in the recreation budget that didn't get used this year.
Correct.
So we need 50,000 from somewhere else.
can we get that from?
If you're gonna do it as a group, ARPA probably or whatever, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I think we should pay.
But I'm not.
At this point, if you visit that site, some work of some kind has to be done. With
Correct.
the flooding for the last 2
To save
years,
it.
there's been damage to that existing launch.
Correct.
It's been undercut and washed out. It's a safety hazard.
Yep. Under the
So-
sidewalk. I've seen
And
it.
we've already paid for the supplies. Or you've already paid for
See
the
the
supplies.
necessity for a
You've
seal.
already paid
I
for the
really do.
supplies too.
Well, if they didn't get any more money this year, they'd have to store those until next year,
Yeah.
whatever, but that's,
I know.
I'm not here for that. I'm here for, they're asking this board for $75,000 to continue on with the work. And they're gonna ask for a future,
We're gonna ask, we have to ask you guys for our whole budget next year. I mean, that's how it's always been.
well, you'll have to skinny
Plus
up
an
someplace
additional
to come up
50.
with 50, but we'll, yeah, it'll have to be decided in the budget process, but for now, they need $75,000. That's what they're asking for.
Today.
Yep.
Probably not today, because he hasn't done any of the work yet, but
Well, I mean the motion. So they know if they have the board's support or not to move forward.
that is correct.
That's what we discussed at the last meeting, right?
So we need to get this wrapped up.
So do we need a motion for the 75, to move 75,000 to the Park Commission
That's up to you people.
for the kayak launch project?
Actually, we only need to approve 50 because we've already approved 25 in the previous budget for the,
Well, we'd have
Rec
to-
department,
We
we
still
just
have to
have to
make that in
move
the
it.
motion. We have to,
Yeah.
we would have to do a budget amendment to move that
for 50. 'cause-
25 from
Yeah,
the rec.
yeah.
So reallocate 25,000 from the rec
Rec.
program?
If you
And-
decide to do it, my recommendation is take 25,000 in the recreation department's budget that not being used this year, and it won't get used this year because we didn't use a rec program.
Right.
We never had one. And then the other 50,000 comes from a different account. I'm definitely opposed to taking it out of my capital improvements, but if you want to take it out of ARPA funds, you can do that. So,
All right, I will make a motion that we reallocate 25,000 of unused funds from the rec program and add an additional 50,000 from ARPA funds to be designated toward the kayak launch project for during this 2022 budget year.
I support.
okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion?
I have some questions. So for future budget costs, I guess, what's the plan with, this is $75,000, like, is that gonna be taken out of future budgets? Because
No,
I kind of,
This is just a one-time.
one-time deal.
but I mean, like, we're not gonna make that up, like, in the future.
Well,
The
That's
plan on the
We
table
could.
is to not do
Yeah.
that right now.
yeah.
That's correct.
But so the question that I have, because looking from 2019, 2020, 21, 22, each year, well, besides one year, there was like there was 98,000 in one year where it was,
They had excess,
Additional.
correct.
and then one year was 58,000 on the whole, and then 68,000 the next year
Mhm.
additional. Like, I think we need to research how to like just get the averages and kind of maybe over the next couple years, like I would be in favor of loaning, like, I guess, it sounds weird, but I mean, like loaning the money and then saying over the next however many years, like we're going to,
Like fronting them the money and
Correct.
then taking it out of their
But
future
they have no other
budgets.
revenue sources besides grant money than us.
I know.
We're it.
We've always
I
gotten
know.
the money
Yeah.
from the township. We don't have any income.
It's our
Right,
part.
for
Yeah.
the
Plus, if we're
All of
taking it
us.
I
from
know.
ARPA, there's
Right.
no
How much
reason
we
to
ask.
I know.
reimburse.
Exactly.
But
We
I-
have almost 400,000 in ARPA funds that we are
Yes.
I know,
going to
We
designate.
have to designate
just,
that.
And we're only
If-
spending 50 of that toward a project that can be,
I know, but I guess,
I would keep that in mind
For the budget
when we do,
workshop.
when we do the
Yes.
budget workshop for next year and for you approving the budget for next year.
right. But
Yes.
I think,
It's kind of hard to say,
I know.
gonna give the money, but we can't say what you do with it. I have a big problem with that, and we already know that.
but
I
so,
mean,
because,
I can't build a new DPW building or put a township hall addition on here, or some of the things that have been expressed to me when I first got here that we wanted to do, but yet we could emergency fund a $240,000 seawall project. I take offense to that. I have a big problem with it. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, I didn't know this was coming. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know they didn't have the money. But here I'm working with our money here and trying to figure out what we're gonna do for tax revenue next year to pay $500,000 in bonds that somebody did before my time too, for $10 million worth of sewer and water work. So now I gotta figure out how to plug that hole and still come up with what people have expressed to me on this board about, yes, it'd be nice to have a DPW building, because of the antiquated, the garage that they're using down there is ridiculously embarrassing to me. Okay? So, yeah, there's a problem that we're gonna prioritize a kayak launched seawall over some of the current needs that the township has. So, there's my rub with it. I'm trying to be nice about this, but yes, should someone have helped them with the numbers? Maybe, but maybe our liaison could have helped them with the numbers over the budget, making sure they understood it. If not, get them help. That would have been great. We need help with the budget to make sure they understand it. To make sure that, hey, they've got this big expenditure coming up. I thought it was around 100,000 when I first heard about it, they wanted to bid it out, but it came in at double the budget. Why would we award it then? Why did they? Why didn't we step back and say, wait a minute, this is twice as much as we thought? So I agree with those
Yeah.
comments, and to answer your question, Mr. Richley, no. There's probably not gonna be any way we recoup that, because we have to at least fund enough money to keep the park open. And we're letting them come up with a way to do that. Unless you wanna go into, well, we're gonna say we can't do this, the park manager can't be year-round or this. And I don't wanna get into that, because I don't think it's our business. Let them run the park. But
But they need to have a solid budget
But-
for doing it. Not just.
obviously, no one was looking at the budget until I did, because no one realized they didn't have the money. They didn't even realize it. So yes, we do need to, as a board, watch what's going on with the budget. I read those minutes. I don't know if you use them for toilet paper or what people do, but I read those minutes. And when it says that they're gonna award a contract for that kind of money, where's it coming from? Because I don't see it in that paperwork. So yeah, they should have come to us sooner, or to make sure
They thought
I'm
they
not
had the
faulting them
money.
because they couldn't read the budgets, whatever, they thought they had this. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I came to you and said, where are you getting the money, but I had to.
Township manager reviews our budget on a daily basis as well.
I don't think she does. She works on the township work,
At the,
but,
I didn't get an email till after, and she sat in on all the bid openings, all the, putting us the bid together and the advertising, with the assumption that we did not have the money. Because she's the
Never
one that
put it
set
out
it
to
together.
bid.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put it out to
We
bid.
had the money set aside from 2020, it was put in the budget, $120,000. I mentioned this at the last.
you put in the expenditure side.
The capital improvement also was depleted from one year to the next. We had 105 in there, and then it went down to 40.
I thought you said you were okay with the numbers when I just went over an hour ago. The
This-
math
yeah.
adds up. The math adds up,
This does.
yes.
Well, I do have to redo it now that the 54 was added in.
If you have any questions on the budget when it comes up, we're gonna have to go over it, but we're kinda clear where you're at right now, right? You have $109,000 in your fund balance, you use some of it to pay Mr. Malcolm. You need to come up with grant revenue, or you only have 14 grand to finish the park this year. Those are the numbers you need to be working with. Throw everything else in the garbage. And then, if something can change, if you can get that grant in November, great, but if not, get me or this board back a number of what you feel you can finish the park expenditure till the end of the year. What you have left to do. You have to pay the manager till the end of the year, or you don't. You have to finish mulch somewhere or something. I don't know what you have left, okay? But come up with that so you can see how close to that number you're gonna get, and if you're gonna be short. Because if you don't bring the grant in, you only have 14,000, okay? So that's what we could do. There's a motion made and supported, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
But, so, the motion that's on the floor, I don't feel comfortable with it, just because.
I don't either,
But the thing,
That's why we vote on
but,
it.
I understand, but
Yeah.
I think, so, we need the actual numbers in front of us, like what's gonna be the end balance at the end of the year in the park budget?
It's gonna be in the hole.
Like even without that expenditure, or with that expenditure?
They only have 14,000 left
If you
right
do
now.
not approve the $75,000 tonight, I would assume that they would have to tell Mr. Malcolm they're gonna postpone the
Yeah.
project for now. They own the seawall, materials and whatnot, and then approach it again at another time.
Subtracting the 54 and not getting the grant, we're in the whole $6,000 for the whole year to finish up the year.
But the other thing too,
And you still have
That-
October, November, and December to,
but no,
I've got
that's
worked
with,
out on that.
is that with those months?
What's that?
Is that minus 6,000, that's with those months or without those months?
Yes, with those
With
months.
okay,
At the very end of the year, if we take out that 54 in grant money, with how it's been budgeted for the rest of the year, we are negative 6,664.
okay. It's just, I think just looking through this, and it's really nobody's fault, it's just, I think there needs to be more consistency with the budget, like with expenses and revenues and all that stuff. I think the money that's carried over, maybe it was for a reason, maybe there was like a,
That was our fund balance,
right,
what was left over.
Right.
Because we had the future projects set up for it.
Well, I think they were
So
trying to
we
save
have-
for some projects, Alan,
we
that's what I'm
have-
saying.
Since this happened, we have revamped it, so now it's a running sheet. So if we have an expenditure, if we had budgeted in, repair and maintenance, which is 7519300. See the next line there, it says September, or actually you can look down to lawn maintenance for September. We paid out $6,300. So now, it's all formulated, so our balance of 18,556 minus 6,386 would be what was available for October. So it'll subtract every month as we put our bills in, so that we will have a better handle on what we're spending.
right.
So it'll be a working budget every single month. Every bill that comes in is immediately gonna be tracked and then just add one. So if we have 2 bills for Scotty's potting, actually we do, 187 and 187. So the bill would be in 187 plus 187, and then that section operating would go down $300.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have it month by month from this day forward to know where we're at.
And I appreciate that, but the last thing that I think I have just reservations with is just, if we give, I'm all for giving the 75,000 as long as we recoup it at some point, because we were over budget.
But if it comes from the ARPA funds, there's nothing to have to recoup. Because that ARPA fund is out there to fund projects like this.
Right.
I think Mr. Ridgely's telling you, or asking, is that we keep that in mind for the future budget coming up, that
Yeah.
you know,
just,
Well,
I don't know
Well,
what's
we've all
going
learned something through this process.
Right.
this isn't the first time that the board has had to come up with money for the parks, and that, and I don't know
Yes.
the other reasons, because I wasn't here, but
Yes.
it's not the first time. And it was before 2019 when it's happened too, but I don't know who, like you said, Herb, there was someone else running it the way they ran, I don't know, but,
Every year you have to give us money. Our whole entire budget comes from the township.
Right.
The only revenues we get are park pavilion rentals. That's it. So we come every year and ask for our full entire budget. So I don't, if you ask for it back, we'd still be asking for you, from you for it again.
when you asked the board or the supervisor last year for your budget, did you tell him you wanted to put a seawall in at the kayak launch for $200,000?
Yes. And it was in the line item. But then I was told you don't want the line item, just to do the total in. So I did the total in. and
Because
approved-
I was under the impression you thought it was a $100,000 job.
No, we had 120 saved for it. So I asked for 125 to make it.
Well, when I was at your park commission meeting way back when, the estimate was about $100,000 to $110,000. I thought that's what they said.
I think that's where it started, and they added that whole end section.
Yes.
We
So
asked.
it was.
Right.
We had 120
Yes.
in our account saved for that. So we asked for 125 from the township for the budget of 2022 to make 245 total. The money we had saved and then the end.
We can ask for whatever you want. What you got was nothing for that project. I did speak with the previous supervisor about it too.
Well, we're here now
So-
asking.
But again, to go forward with the project like that, to answer your question, Mr. Ridgely, that paying it back out of what? I don't know. The only thing you could do is be very stringent with your budget appropriations for, in the future here, that say, you know, look, we just had to come up with 125 or whatever it's gonna be, and, you know,
Just as
the
an,
pinstriping on the Kubota is not gonna happen.
just as an
I don't know
example.
what else to say, you know.
Well, you are
No extras,
making an
whatever, I don't know.
investment in an improvement to township property that all the residents use and can enjoy. It's not like you're throwing the money out in the air and nobody's gonna enjoy it. I mean, it's for public recreation and it gets used a lot.
And the previous
lot.
boards approved to put the kayak launch in, approved to put the concrete in.
And there was a grant for that when it came in. That was
All of
county
that.
grant money
So
that paid
all
for
the money
that.
that was already spent for the project is just gonna go to waste if
Right.
we can't make it usable.
Cause it's
Salvageable.
getting wrecked. It's washing away under.
Yes, there is a need for the seawall.
This-
That's the end.
The thing, I think that, because I agree with the ARPA funds thing, at the same time, like, if something happens, an emergency or something in the next year or two, whenever we're able to spend it, like if. I
We have
think
until
that-
2026 to spend the ARPA money.
But the other,
I was hoping to use some of it for some of the projects that we wanted to do. So,
But, so, I guess my thing is, if we came up with a plan to say in future years, like, just as an example, the one year that they had 69,000 extra or 98, or no, excuse me, 69,000 extra and then they had,
94.
but I mean, like, if,
The only thing you're gonna be able to alter is their capital improvement fund. You're not gonna be able to cut their operating funds. We're still gonna have to finance the park. So next year, when they come to you with a capital improvement project, if you don't like it, that's where you control their budget, is their capital improvements. I mean, it's either that or we let our parks fall into disrepair, we start cutting their operating budget. Again, it's not like we've been handing out tons of extra money for operating over the years. The last 2 years, we've cut them.
well,
And basically, that was because of COVID.
but the
You know, it wasn't
expenses
used,
have
so I
been
don't
going
think
up.
They're ever gonna get used again.
The
Yes.
expenses go up here.
Right.
Everything's
I know,
going up.
I know.
Again, the budget is an estimate.
Right.
revenues and expenditures. All right, we do have a motion on the table. It's been supported, so we need to take a roll call vote.
Is there any more discussion? Any more comments or questions?
What's the consequence of if it fails?
They'll have to postpone the project until next year or whenever they can get the money.
And then next year we'll ask for the full amount. Because we don't, you guys control
Right.
our money. Like, we don't have taxes and water bills and all that supporting us.
Right.
We have what we request.
Well, during the budget process, I'll be happy to go over with these numbers with you every which way I can, and I'll make sure you do fully understand what you're getting for next year. That way there's no questions.
I haven't even proposed anything yet, so
Pardon me?
I haven't even proposed anything yet because we haven't had our meeting. So you've already set an amount.
It was asked to be, all departments were supposed to get us their budget by August, but nobody has. Well,
September
one has.
15th was the date I was given.
Yeah.
Yeah, September.
Well, we asked for it by August 31st, but we haven't gotten it yet.
So we pay it now or we pay it next year?
But anyway, that's,
Take your choice.
to answer your question, if they don't have the money, they would have to wait and do it next, or whenever. They own some seawall right now,
Right.
how's that?
It's gonna
Probably gonna
more
cost
if we-
more.
They don't cost more if we wait till next year.
And we
Because all
purchase
the prices,
materials.
As you said, everything is going up.
I'm sure his contract, his price was good for a certain length of time.
They usually are.
And we are under contract.
Well, what would happen is you'd
Right.
pay for his to date, which is his work and materials stored, and then it would be rebid at that point.
Can we
We're ready to
table this
do it.
until the next meeting so that we know what the budget's going to be?
Well, at this point, we can't, because there's a motion's been made and supported, otherwise we could, but we can't now
We
because
can
it's been
amend the
tabled.
motion or no? I don't know.
It's not my
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
They've made a motion and supported it, so now we discuss it, comments or questions, but there will need to be a vote
We could
at
have
some
a
point before
special
this meeting
meeting.
closes.
Yeah, I mean, technically it wasn't on the agenda, just park budget review, but
But it's under the
I
budget,
know.
so.
it's just,
I would be willing to table it and have a special meeting maybe. After we get more information on the budget, like what the actual numbers are gonna be.
It's not gonna change, the budget is what it is. They're asking for $75,000 to pay it. They have to come up with
For a specific project.
the rest of it for getting through the year, which you say you have. Correct? Your operating
But-
budget?
Yeah, I moved it all, like I said, a few minutes ago, after taking the 54,000 of the fake money out, we're gonna be in the whole $6,000.
But even if, like, I just wanna make sure that that's the actual, what's actually like in the bank, like what, I don't understand.
Can't guarantee it. We don't have an accurate figure, you're correct.
But I mean, at that point, I mean, 50,000's coming from ARPA funds, but it's some, I don't know. I think,
Well, at the end of the year, they might have to come back and ask us for another 10 or whatever to finish out the
Right,
year for
right.
operating expenses.
right,
But right now, we are under contract for this project, so it's either now or next year.
I just hate that it came down to this way. That's,
Well, you
I know.
can cancel
Well,
the
it's a
contract.
learning
There's
process for all
costs
of
incurred
us
with
to
that, but you
realize
can cancel the contract.
What's
But that's,
happened here? How does Scott word
they're
it?
entitled to whatever materials they've already procured and
'cause I mean, we
expenses
kinda
to date.
did this last year too, so.
We were waiting on the Eagle Room last year.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, roll call vote. Treasurer Hart?
I'm gonna say yes, although I don't like it.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstack?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
no.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Westrick?
No.
Motion
Motion's carried.
carries 4-2.
What I do with my agenda, I rolled it into here. Next item, I think, is the change order for Hunter Electric, the Edwards demo. completed all the electrical work, moved, relocated everything, and discovering the one big transformer there does not have a neutral on it. There's no
Thank
neutral
you.
tap for it.
Thank you.
So we had to actually, luckily, there was an old transformer in the pump station building that he could use to move into the DPW to feed that. So the only difference was, instead of a single-phase transfer switch, he had to use a three-phase transfer switch. I know some of that might not mean anything to the people, but,
Good night. Thank you
It
for the
sounds
work.
good.
all right, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
So he just charges the difference in the cost of the transfer switch is all.
That's reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is, this is kind of my fault, I wasn't sure about permits, but we decided after talking with Tracy, we should have a permit on that, so that was not included in his bid, so I want to include the $482.21 for that transfer switch, plus the cost of the permit. He did get a permit for it. They were supposed to include that with this, but I don't have, it's not in here, I believe it was $255, but I'd like to just make the motion that we approve the change order for $482.21 for the transfer switch and the cost of the permit, because there's a record on that. It's right around that number.
Okay, 42 plus cost of permit. Okay, did you make that motion?
That's a motion, yeah.
I'll support.
Okay.
Is there any, just more discussion or questions or comments, you guys? Clerk, please call the
Roll
roll.
call vote, Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Wister?
Yes. The next item is kind of same thing in order for the contractor that we awarded the contract to demo that building, we need a building permit, or demolition permit actually, from our building department, and he is requiring, which it's in the code, an asbestos abatement survey. I had 4 different people that I contacted to give us a price. We got some verbals, but this was the cheapest one, and this is actually the one that Mr. Schweihofer works with. It's very reasonable, it's $800. Now, if they don't find any asbestos, that's the end of that, and we're done, and we just, have a permit for that.
Right.
If they find asbestos, they'll come up with a number, or a contractor to do it. I don't think there's anything in there, just looking around, but you just never know. It's a very, very old building, so just to keep this job moving, we need to get an approval to get the asbestos inspection going. If it's, number is $800, and it's BDS Environmental. I make a motion to approve that.
Support.
Any other questions, you guys, or comments? Other than this and the building permit, we should be able to rock and roll with it once we get going.
Roll call vote, Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Wister?
Yes. Number 11, Mr. I don't even know how to say his last name. I'll just say Blaine.
Siska.
He needs to get new fire hydrant meters and backflow preventers when people rent them for like job site construction and whatnot, because the other ones are not working right, and it's a health hazard. So he's had this in his budget. He's recommending that we approve the purchase of Zenner 3-inch fire hydrant meter from Pollard Water. The dollar amount is $3,629.71, I believe.
Okay.
So I guess I'll make that the motion to approve that.
I'll support.
You have any questions on that? Comments?
Is there 2?
There's 3 different ones, but
Yeah.
it's this Pollard one.
He had 3 different bids, but he took that
Okay.
one.
Took the top.
Yeah.
All right, we got a motion and support, and roll call vote. Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Wister?
Yes. This is 12. This is budgeted, and it's also going to be covered, half of it under the grant that we got for the bike path repairs. He's going to update those bridges to ADA, the ramps are very steep, whatnot. He just wants to get an approval to buy the lumber from Lumberjack, $4,348.80. They were the cheaper bid. So What's another motion? How's that?
So move, oh,
No, that, Mr.
Support.
Richard moves, all right. I'll support that, though. How's that?
There.
Any questions or comments, you guys? He wants to get that work done this year.
Which bridges are they?
There's 3 different bridges, I believe. Two bridges over there, but the bigger one, we're not doing anything with until we can maybe get that tap ran, I believe. But, you know, the bridges on the bike path that are in the park?
No, I know which, I know the big one in the middle of the park. What's
The railroad bridge is not, there's 2 of them in the park, though. We've looked at them. The first one kind of by the clearing on equipment, and then the other one's over kind of behind the parking lot there.
The smaller, narrow one going.
There's
towards
3 of
the-
them altogether.
One goes
of
to the
those.
soccer
He's
field.
doing them all,
The big steep one in the middle of the park.
all of them. He's doing all 3 of
Right.
them. We had that in the budget of that grant. Questions, comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call vote. Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Wister?
Yes. Okay, new business 13 is now the 2022 tax rate request form. This is the one we have to file every year by the end of September 30th with the assessor. It's going to be the same rate that was last year for right now, 4.4873 mils. Any questions?
Until we complete our budget, and then we will amend it. Which we
Yeah.
will. I'll make a motion, we adopt this form L4029 and authorize the clerk and supervisor to sign it.
Support.
Any more discussion? I'll just make a comment. I did get a tax revenue estimate from our assessor. The SED is going up a little bit, but our best guess right now is if we don't change the rate at all, it only nets us $50,000 additional revenue next year over this year.
Right,
So
yeah, I get
that
that.
won't even cover cost inflation. So just a forewarning right there. How's that? Okay. I would need a roll call or not on this. This is just a form.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's regular items. Also, we would like to have a closed session here, just a periodic evaluation of our township manager and contract review. So I would need a motion to go into a closed session with that.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Support. All right, roll call on that, according to Mr. Ryan.
Roll call to go in closed session. Treasurer Hart?
Yes.
Trustee Babel?
Yes.
Trustee Blackstock?
Yes.
Trustee Richley?
Yes.
Clerk Matei, yes. Supervisor Wister?
Yes. Okay,
You,
we're in closed session for a minute.
27.
Were we gonna have to go back in?